Give me 1 second.
I went on an ARP diet, autoimmune.
Good to see you.
Shabbat Shalom. How are you? Good to see you.
Very nice.
And then how was that?
Very nice. You mean like asking love to each other?
It's gas.
But I mean like that everybody should talk to each other about what they've done this week or
Yeah, I've never had
or-
one. I've never had one and I will never get one.
Alright, I think I got it. I'll
I was in.
do what I can.
I'm a contact massage and everything.
Yeah, no, for sure.
I don't want massage and So I have to.
Making my rounds, you know. That's very nice. How you doing?
Charles, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah, I know. They should just taste it. They give them too many shots. There are like 75 different shots that they give them. It's like it's ridiculous. They get 2-month-old baby.
So you changed your food intake? That's how you lose it?
Yeah, I learned from my dad. I went out to dinner with him. He said, eat what you eat, just eat half.
Yeah.
Just take the other half and
Give it to somebody
give it
else.
to the dog.
To the dog.
I'm just saying,
The filet mignon.
you know what? You're better off not eating.
Yeah.
And you're happier later. You know what? It takes me a long time to fill up. So I'm hungry and I eat and I don't realize if I
You eat 3 meals?
Other than that, you know, for whatever it's worth, but the spurs up to that, because anything else I can do.
All right, Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Shabbat Shalom. Is everybody excited for Hanukkah? Of course. You have your list ready? Marilyn? Yeah? No? No, not yet. I was just asking what you're getting for Hanukkah. What are you getting for Hanukkah? That was really the... You know, we're not... That should never end. Otherwise, that's very depressing, you know? I think...
I get the bill.
You get... that is true. That is true. All right. All right. Well, again, Shabbat Shalom to everyone. And, before we get started, Neil reminded me that, over the years we used to do a little something before Kabbalat Shabbat, one of which was to just explain a little bit of kind of the structure and the idea of what Kabbalat Shabbat represents. The service that we do tonight, the reason we're all here really is to do the Ma'ariv service, the service that is expected of us each and every evening. Kabbalat Shabbat is a historical addition that comes, it's a longer story over a period of time, but one of the things that the rabbis who construct it do is they try to say, when you get to Shabbat, you shouldn't just come right into it. There needs to be a little bit of reflection, a little bit of thought. And part of that thought is thinking about the week that's come before. And the way that they do that is pretty brilliant. They went and sort of associated with all of the psalms that were said on particular days of the week. So Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Each of the psalms that we do from the beginning to the end carries us basically from, when we ended Shabbat Sunday last week all the way through now. So while we invite up in a second Marilyn Zaretsky, who's going to light and bless our sets of candles here, I want everyone to just take a second and really contemplate, think a little bit about what your week has been like. Okay, what you were doing on each and every one of those days. And as we move through Kabbalat Shabbat, try both the good things, right, to hold on to, and the things perhaps that were less than ideal. We slowly start to release. So by the time we get to Shabbat, by the time that we get to really, experiencing Shabbat, we've processed a little bit, and we've given ourselves that opportunity. So we're going to invite up Marilyn Zaretsky, as I said, to light and bless our Shabbat candles. You can also turn to the people around you and wish each other a Shabbat Shalom, especially if you don't recognize the faces. Make sure that you say hello. And page 120, but something tells me you've done it before. I'm just guessing. Just guessing. It's 120.
Blessed art thou, Adonai our God, sovereign in the universe, who hallows us with mitzvot, commanding us to kindle the light of Shabbat.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Aaron. So we'll turn now to page 130 as we begin Kabbalat Shabbat together toward the very top of the page. Again, page 130. Lechu nerahanena, lechu nerahanena, lechu nerahanena ladonai. Lechu nerahanena, lechu nerahanena, lechu nerahanena ladonai. Naria, naria, letzori, shenu nekadma, fana vetodam. Naria, naria, letzori, shenu, bizmirot naria lo. Lechu nerahanena, lechu nerahanena, lechu nerahanena ladonai. Lechu nerahanena, lechu nerahanena, lechu nerahanena ladonai. We'll turn to page 131, Shiru Ladonai, in the middle of the page. Shiru Ladonai, Shiru Shir Chadash, Shiru Ladonai, Kol Haaretz, Shiru Ladonai, Baruchu Shemo, Basru meyom leyom Yeshuato. Shiru ladonai baruchu shemo. Basru meyom leyom Yeshuato. Shiru ladonai, Shiru shir chadash. Shiru ladonai, kol haaretz. Shiru ladonai baruchu shemo. Basru meyom leyom Yeshuato. Shiru ladonai baruchu shemo. Basru meyom leyom Yeshuato. We turn now to Or Zaru on the bottom of page 132. Or Zaru ala tzadik. Uleishrei lev simcha, or zaru ala tzadik. Uleishrei lev simcha, simechu tzadikim b'Adonai, vehodu lezecher kodsho. Simechu tzadikim b'Adonai, Vehodu lezecher kodsho. We turn now to the top of page 134. Zamru ladonai bechinor, bechinor bekol zimra, bachatzotrot bekol shofar. Ahariu lifnei hamelech Adonai, Yiram hayamum lo, Tebel veyoshveva, Neharot imcha uchaf yachad, Harim yiranenu, Lifnei Adonai kiva, Lishbot haaretz, Yishbot tevel betzedek, Vehamim mesharim, Yiram hayamum lo, Tevel veyoshveva, Neharot imcha uchaf yachad, Harim yiranenu. We're now on page 135, the last Hebrew paragraph in the middle of the page. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu lehar kodsho. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu lehar kodsho. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Romemu Adonai והשתחוו להר קודשו. We turn now to page 136, the 29th Psalm. Mizmor leDavid, Avu l'Adonai b'nei Elim, Avu l'Adonai kavod va'oz, Avu l'Adonai kevod shemo, Ishtachavu l'Adonai behadrat kodesh, Kol Adonai hamayim, El kavod hirim, Adonai al mahayim rabim, Adonai al mahayim rabim, Kol Adonai ba'koach, Kol Adonai behadar, Kol Adonai shover harazim, Vaishaber Adonai et arzei halvanon, Vayarkidehem kemo hegel, Levanon v'Sirion, kemo v'hen reimim, kemo v'hen reimim. Kol Adonai chotzeb labotesh, Kol Adonai yachil midbar, Yachil Adonai midbar kadesh, Kol Adonai echol layalot, Vayechesov ye'arot, Uvechalo kulo merkavod, kulo merkavod, kulo merkavod. Adonai lamabu yashav, vayeshev Adonai melech leolam. Adonai oz le'amo yiten, Adonai yevarech et amo v'shalom. We'll turn to L'chadodi now on page 138, and a reminder we'll do the first, second, fifth, and ninth paragraphs, and for the final paragraph we'll rise and face the doors we walked through a few moments ago. L'chadodi likrat kala, penei Shabbat nekabela. L'chadodi likrat kala, penei Shabbat nekabela. Shamur bezachur, bedibur echad hishmianu, el hameyuchad Adonai echad, uhu shemo echad, l'shemo tiferet, ve'elitila, l'chadodi likrat kala, penei Shabbat nekabela, likrat Shabbat, Lechu v'nelcha ki mekor, haberacha merosh mikedem, nesucha sof maaseh, b'machshava tchila, l'chadodi, likrat kala, penei Shabbat nekabela, l'chadodi, likrat kala, penei Shabbat nekabela. Hitoreri, kiva orech, kumi ori, uri, shir daberi, kevod Adonai, alaich nigla. L'chadodi, likrat kala, penei Shabbat nekabela. Boi v'shalom, ateret ba'ala gam besimcha, uve'tzola toch emune, Olam Segula, Boi Chala, Alecha Dodim, Likrat Kala, Pene Shabbat, Nekabela. Please be seated as we turn to page 140, Tzadik Katamar, where the Hebrew indents just in the middle of the page. Tzadik Katamar Yifrach, Keres Bavanon Yiskem Shetulim Beveit Adonai Bechatzrot Eloheinu Yafrichu Od Yeduvum Meseba Deshenim Verananim Ihu Lehagin Ki Ashar Adonai Tsuri Velo Havnatabo. We rise in body or spirit for the Chatzi Kaddish on page 144 and remain standing for the Baruch Hu on the next page. Yitkadal vehitkadash shemei Rabbah Be'alma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei B'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael Bagalaha u'vizman kari v'himeru Amen. Yeheshmei Rabbah mevarach Le'alam li'al me'al maya Yitbarach v'yishtabach V'yitbar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal Shemei dekudsha brichu Leila min kol birchata v'shirata Tushbechata v'nechemata Damiran be'alma ve'meru. Amen. Baruch Hu et Adonai hamevorach. Baruch Adonai hamvorach leolam va'ed. Please be seated. Let's turn to the top of page 149, as we'll read together in English. Praise to you, Adonai our God, from whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars. Creator of the tide of time and light, you guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praise to you, Adonai our God, from whom the evening flows. Umahavir yom umei v'layla, umavdihil ben yom uvelayla, Adonai tzavahot shemo, El chai v'kayam tamid yimloch aleinu leolam va'ed, Baruch atah Adonai, Amari v'aravim. We'll turn now to the top of page 151 as we read together in English toward the top. As you taught Torah to those whose names I bear, teach me Torah too. Its mystery beckons, yet I struggle with its truth. You meant Torah for me. Did you mean the struggle for me too? Don't let me struggle alone. Help me to understand, to be wise, to listen, to know. Lead me into the mystery. Ki ehem chayenu ve'orech yameinu, uvahem negei yomam v'lahayla. Vavatcha al tasir mimenu liolamim, Baruch atah Adonai, ohev amo Yisrael. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Please join me on page 154. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha v'chol levavcha v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol meodecha ve'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavcha hayom al levavecha ve'shinantam levanecha ve'dibarta bam ve'shiftecha b'veitecha u'lechtecha b'derech u'shochbecha u'kumecha u'kshartam leot al yadecha ve'hayu letotafot bein einecha u'chtavtam al mezuzot beitecha u'visharecha leman tizkeru v'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'tem kedoshim le'elohechem Ani Adonai Elohechem Asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim liot lachem Elohim Ani Adonai Elohechem Adonai Elohechem Emet. We'll turn now to the top of page 157 as we read together in English. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands and marching together. As we turn to page 158, Mechamocha, at the very top of the page. Yabai bye bim 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 bam, yabai bye bim bam, yabai bye bim 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 bam, yabai bye bim bam, yai bye ba 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 bye, yabai bye bim bam, yai bye ba 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 bye, yabai bye bim bam, nihi chamocha, bailihim Adonai, mihi kamocha. Nedar b'hakodesh, nor ha'tehilot, o sefele, nor ha'tehilot, o sefele, yabai bai bim bim bam, yabai bai bim bam, yabai bai bim bim bam, yabai bai bim bam, yai bai ba 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 bai, yabai bai bim bam. Yai bye ba 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 bye ya ba bye bye bim bam Malachutecha ra'u vanecha Bokeam lifnei Moshe u'Miriam ze li'anu ve'amru Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed V'ne'emar kifad Adonai et Yaakov Ugolo miad chazak mimenu Baruch at Adonai Gal Yisrael. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Adonai, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace and rise up waiting to do your will. Hashkivenu is on the top of page 160. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom vehamidenu shomreinu lechayim. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom vehamidenu shomreinu lechayim. Ushmor tzeiteinu, uvoeinu, lechaim u'shalom, me'ata ve'ad olam. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom, ve'hamidenu, shomreinu lechayim. Blessed are you, Adonai, guardian of Israel, whose shelter of peace is spread over us, over all your people Israel, and over Yerushalayim. We turn to Vishamar on the top of page 162. Veshamru b'nei Israel et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam ein 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 beini uvein b'nei Israel oti le'olam ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai et hashamayim bet haaretz uvayom hashevi'i Shabbat Shabbat vayinafash. Invite us now to rise in body or spirit as we turn to page 164 to begin the Amidah together. From that point on, we'll continue silently. As always, please go at your own pace. When you're finished at the end, if you're still standing, you may be seated. Adonai sefatai tiftachu fi yagi tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Oseh shalom imromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom. Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom. Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. We'll turn now to page 371 as we offer our Mishaberach, our healing prayer for this evening. Tonight in our community, we're thinking of Madeline Egelfeld, Abigail Blum, Kate Sherwood, Herman Gould, Aimee and Warren Cass, Rivka Bat Rachel, Lorraine Danis, David Dowling, Sibia Devora Bat Francis, Shelley Newmark, Diane Axelrod, Gabriella Spicer, David Kyle Klopman, Lorraine Davis, Kim Birnbaum, Deborah Block-Kroll, Sylvia Oren, Rachel Bat Ora, Peretz Ben Shlomo, Israel Ben Yitzchak, Jill Fagan, Mort and Judy, Ava Bat Helena, and Yoel Ben Arina Be'ava. In addition to those names that I just shared, if you're praying for anyone this evening and you'd like to mention their names aloud, we'll start on this side of the room towards the front and then work to the back of the room and then this side. And if you have names to share, please do raise a hand so I don't miss anybody.
Jill Butterly, Joyce Letterstein, and Maurice Attali.
course, we invite our friends watching at home to add the names of your loved ones as well. And we'll join together for the Mishaberach in the middle of page 371. Mishaberach Avotenu Mekor HaBracha Lihimotenu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mishaberach Imotenu Mekor HaBracha Lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. We turn to offer our prayer for Israel, page 377. Avinu Shabashamayim Sur Yisrael v'goalo barechet Medinat Yisrael reshit tzmichat gulatenu. Again aleha be'evrat chastecha ufros aleha sukat shalomecha ushlach orcha v'amidcha l'rasheha sareha v'yoatzea v'taknem be'etzah tova milfanecha v'natata shalom ba'aretz v'simchat olam liyoshveha v'nomar Amen. O Heavenly One, Protector and Redeemer of Israel, bless the state of Israel, which marks the dawning of hope for all who seek peace. Shield it beneath the wings of your love, spread over it the canopy of your peace. Send your light and truth to all who lead and advise, guiding them with your good counsel. Establish peace in the land and fullness of joy for all who dwell there, and together we say, Amen. Well, Shabbat Shalom, everyone. And so getting into the Hanukkah spirit, I thought I would teach you a little bit in advance. I know, it's the sort of funny observation, I guess, and I'm not sure if this is the case of all Hebrew schools or all rabbis or all students, but I suspect if I were to ask the students on a given Monday, and Shelley, you'll tell me whether I'm right or wrong, what's the most important Jewish holiday of the season? Of course, it's gonna be Hanukkah every time, right? And then if you were to ask them, okay, well, where does one find information about Hanukkah in the Torah? They will, I'm sure, try to help figure that. But of course, there's no Hanukkah anywhere in the Torah, anywhere even in the vicinity of the Torah. It's not in the prophets, it's not in the writings. It can't be, historically can't be, because it hasn't happened yet. So, holidays like Hanukkah are sort of already interesting in that they fit into a very particular kind of category. Purim is of a similar nature, in which, because of all the things we've done to make them into these really fun and festive and interesting holidays, they find their way into sort of a place of preeminence when, if one were to go into the Wayback Machine and go all the way back in history, right, the rabbis would look at you sideways if you thought that in any way, shape, or form, that Hanukkah or Purim was in any vicinity of something like Rosh Hashanah or Yom Kippur, and quite frankly, even something that, like Shabbat, which is, again, the holiday of holidays. Shabbat is a holiday each and every week. And yet at the same time, it is important. And the truth is, actually, it's more important than we may realize in some ways. And there are some expectations of this holiday that, because of its sort of light and jovial nature, we tend not to think in those terms. But I wanted to share with you a little bit of something, and I hope that both on a halachic level we'll understand kind of what's going on. But as you can imagine, as I like to, I try to get to a bigger place by the end. So we'll start with a great example of Talmud, okay, Masechet Shabbat, the section of the Talmud that primarily deals not just with Shabbat, but with holidays and similar kinds of things. And as the rabbis often do, they begin with what is a pretty straightforward and also big question. My Chanukah. What is Chanukah? So you would assume, right, what kind of silly question is that to ask in the Talmud? What is Chanukah? We would assume that this is already very well established. And as we talked about, for the rabbis, actually, it's something of an ongoing reality. And when they ask the question, what is Hanukkah, it's an everything kind of question. When does it happen? How does it happen? What is one supposed to do? What's most important? What's least important? It seems like a very straightforward question, but nothing in the Talmud is straightforward. And so this goes on for pages and pages, which I can't teach you tonight. But we're going to start from the simple and we'll work to the complex. So the Gemara answers, the rabbis of the Gemara answer. The sages taught us in another section of the Talmud, in Megillat Ta'anit, the section that actually deals with fast days, believe it or not. And we're told on the 25th of the month of Kislev, The days of Hanukkah are 8. One may not eulogize on them, and one may not fast on them. Okay, these are the first 2 most important details we find out. So shorthand, why is that a helpful piece of information for us? Generally speaking, what are the times in which we're told not to do these things, to eulogize, or ultimately to fast? Okay, yeah, Shabbat. Basically, every major holiday, anytime that there's something joyful going on, it is inappropriate to eulogize, to fast, to do things that are associated with their antithesis, right? With loss, with lament, and so on and so forth. Okay? Now, what is the reason we're told? If I gave you 2 seconds to answer, I'm sure many of you have already kind of gotten to that place. Why is this particularly important? Why are we celebrating? Because when the Greeks entered the sanctuary, they defiled all the oils that were in the sanctuary by touching them. And when the Hashmonaim monarchy, that is the Maccabees as we are familiar with, overcame them and emerged victorious over them, they searched and found only 1 cruse of oil that was placed with the seal of the high priest. Undisturbed by the Greeks, this is the familiar part of the story, and there was sufficient oil there to light the candelabrum, the menorah, for only 1 day. And a miracle occurred, and they lit the candelabrum from it for 8 days. Okay, so all of this were pretty standard so far. Okay, and then here we have the description of the first Hanukkah ever. Okay, not waiting 10 years, 20 years, 100 years. The next year, we're told, from that point on, the sages instituted that there should be those days and acknowledged as such, and to make them a holiday, and this is the key. The only thing the Talmud tells us at this point, how do we celebrate those 8 days? Is we recite Hallel, and we have certain prayers of thanksgiving that we do on those days, which is true. Okay, we add certain prayers, we do Hallel, things that you do during joyous times. What's missing from this discussion, then? Lighting candles. Okay, the thing that we most associate with lighting candles. Now I'm going to jump to much further in the future, the Shulchan Aruch, the compendium of Jewish legal decisions that, to this day, most people, if you're trying to understand how to observe various forms of halakha, you will pull a Shulchan Aruch or some various version of it off the shelf, and this is where you'll look. So now the Shulchan Aruch adds another layer. So we go all of a sudden from, okay, 8 days, you do Hallel, you say some nice prayers of thanksgiving, and now all of a sudden the Shulchan Aruch tells us, okay, Sarich lizaher me'od behadlakat neirot Chanukah, that you must be not just doing, but you must be diligent. Lizaher in Hebrew is the root form that gives to one of the most important words you can ever know going to travel to Israel, zihirut, which means don't go anywhere near it, okay? It's dangerous. You have to be meticulously careful about. Usually it's the indication of like a minefield or something like that. What is it telling us? We have to be meticulously careful about lighting candles, okay? Lighting the Hanukkah candles. And then it says, Va'afilu oni, hamit parnes min hatzedakah. Even a person who has nothing to their name, who lives exclusively off of and makes their entire sustenance off of tzedakah, off the righteous giving of the neighborhood, even someone in that circumstance, shoel mocher kesuoto v'lokeach shemen lahadlik. That even in that circumstance, one is meant to either pawn or sell the clothing off of your back in order to buy enough oil to be able to light the Hanukkah candles. So how do we get from a Talmudic discourse, let's give it 500, 600 CE, to the Shulchan Aruch, let's say 16th century, and between those 2 time periods, we have a pretty lax holiday in which one, right, basically is told, celebrate it for 8 days, say Hallel when you get to shul, say some extra prayers, and that's it, to being told that it is so important to light candles that even if you have nothing else, even if you can't afford food, even if you only own 1 pair of clothing, you are supposed to go take it to the pawn shop or to sell it so that you have enough money to buy the oil to light the candles. So how do we get from here to there? And why are these candles ultimately so important? Well, like most things in Judaism, of course, there's not any one particular answer. But I want to try to drive us towards an image of these candles and this light to help us understand how it could be possible that something could be enforced in that kind of way or expected in that kind of way. So going back to Masechet Shabbat, we get a little bit of an indication of sort of how the hierarchy of things plays out here. So one of the great rabbis, Rabbah, said, "It is obvious to me that there is a fixed list of priorities. When a person is poor and must choose between purchasing oil to light a Shabbat lamp for his home or purchasing oil to light a Hanukkah lamp, what do we think?" Very good. Okay, we might assume, based on everything that we just read, okay, that the Hanukkah lamp is going to take precedence. In this case, right, the Shabbat lamp for his home takes precedence. So this selling, right, for the purposes of lighting Shabbat, apparently it's not just about Hanukkah, right? It's about lighting the Shabbat candles too, that there's something very powerful about this. Okay, why is this? Well, we're told actually in this case, this is due to Shalom Bayit, to peace in the home. Why? Because if you don't have Shabbat candles, right, if you don't have oil to light those candles, then your family will be sitting and eating their meal in the dark. Similarly, if there is a conflict between acquiring oil to light a lamp for one's home and wine for the sanctification of Shabbat, okay, what do we think takes precedence in this case? Okay, one would think the wine, okay. However, okay, again, the lamp takes precedence because of Shalom Bayit, right? I want to make sure nobody gets angry. Everybody's not sitting in the dark and eating a cold meal, as it were. However, this same Rava raises a dilemma. This is a great thing also where rabbis pose questions and then challenge their own questions just to answer it themselves. I think I do that myself quite often, right? When the conflict is between oil for a Hanukkah lamp or wine for Kiddush, what do we think? Okay. One would think, right, Kiddush of Shabbat should take priority because, and that's not for the reason you might assume. In a general principle in Jewish law, something that happens consistently or frequently takes precedence over something that happens infrequently. So if there is a conflict, generally speaking, you're going to stick to the thing that's most important, okay? Or perhaps the Hanukkah lamp takes precedence, okay? Maybe not. Why? Because of this idea of Pirsum Hanes, or Pirsuma Hanesim, right? This idea of publicizing the miracle. The purpose, again, of the Chanukiah, the reason we put it in the windowsill, is so that it is standing as evidence to the world, to the outside world, to the inside world, about this miraculous thing that happened. Okay, so in that circumstance, while we might assume that the wine for making Kiddush is the most important thing, then in this case, actually, again, we go back to the Hanukkah lamp, and it takes precedence, again, to this idea of Pirsum Hanes. Now, as a last piece of this, okay, so we have this sort of image that the light matters, and it actually seems to matter a great deal. And it's not just a matter of, even though it may seem a matter of lighting so that we're not in the dark or so that we don't have to eat in the dark or things of that nature, but there is something inherent in the idea of light to our people. Okay, not just our Shabbat candles, but in this very specific time of Hanukkah. Right? Why does this ultimately play such a significant role? So there is a Hasidic teaching of the Bnei Yisachar, who I very highly doubt anybody, perhaps Dr. Lenskowski, maybe somewhere in the yeshiva studied a long time ago, didn't live the longest of lives, the 1800s, but it's often quoted, and it's interesting in that his work goes according to the months of the calendar as opposed to tying it to the Parsha or whatever it might be. And so Tzvi Elimelech says as follows. He says, the light which was established under Matityahu, Matityahu of the famous Maccabees, was an illumination of the light which was created on the first day of creation. A miraculous light in those days, which continues into ours as an emanation of the primordial light stashed away after creation, but illuminated every year at this very particular time. This hidden light, he says, was stashed in the Torah, which is why as both light and candles are references to Torah. This is it's less, again, in your likely lexicon, unless you've engaged with Aramaic before, but in Aramaic terminology, the Torah is referred to as deoraita. Okay, so literally, if you don't know any Hebrew, if you know the word or means light. Deoraita means, right, the Torah is understood to be sort of connected to this idea of light giving, right? Which is why both light and candles are references ultimately not to candles or to light, but to the Torah itself. And what is it that the Greeks ultimately wanted to do? What is it that they were trying their very best to do? They were trying to nullify the light of Torah. And therefore, the miracle of this holiday was done ultimately through oil. Could have been through any number of other means. But it was worked precisely through the thing that was attempting to be taken away from us, became the symbol of our resilience. The resilience and the rebuilding and the rededication ultimately of our people. Which is why he says, ultimately it is a reference to wisdom. Any time that we encounter this image of light in our tradition, it is about Torah, it is about wisdom. And through the menorah, through the power of the Chanukiah, through the thing that we put in our windows and we light down the street, and that are being lit all over the Jewish world starting at sundown on Sunday night, okay, all of this really at its depth is a reference to our essential Torah. And when in history, individuals, groups, peoples attempt, right, to shut that light out, to snuff it out, our responsibility, especially at this time of year, is to be what? Right? Bringers of light, to show it as brightly as we possibly can. And one of the things I went back to in thinking about it this morning is, I know that all of us were sometimes hard on ourselves about, for example, our level of Jewishness or our Jewish practice or our observance or our things like that, right? And we tend to think of ourselves in that way, in that sort of self-flagellating way, and diminish ourselves to the point in which we think of ourselves as spiritually impoverished, right? We think of ourselves to some degree as that person described in the Talmud, okay? And what is that person meant to do? Is to scrape together whatever it is that we have, to find that essential kernel, and then to make that the thing that lights up our holiday, that shines the brightest. So this is this year, right? This is this time of year always, but it feels like especially now, right? Wherever there is an attempt to cover our lights, to make us feel like we can't be ourselves, to cover the things that identify us, to not want to be in public when celebrating, right? Whatever that instinct may understandably be, this is the time of year that tells us, and let me tell you something, people, we're certainly living through some tough times, but if you want to compare it to the experience of our various ancestors throughout diaspora, what it meant to put a Chanukiah in your window, right? What it meant to do that, what risk one potentially took depending on where you were, right? We got it easy in comparison, but it doesn't mean it's any less meaningful. So I think our image this year is really to go into ourselves and say, forget about selling or pawning our clothing for the sake of, but let's turn it into a positive. Right? Whatever we have within us, whatever our Jewishness is, whatever is uniquely ours, this is the year to turn that knob all the way up, right? To light that candle as brightly as you can, to put it in the window so everyone can see, to live your Jewishness as proudly as you possibly can, even with its complexities, even with all of the challenges, right? That is the essential Torah. That is the essential quality. And while I might have began this by sort of tongue-in-cheek saying, right, maybe we think a little too much of Hanukkah, I'm starting to get in my older rabbinic age thinking maybe we don't think enough about it. We just don't necessarily think about it in the way that we ought to. And I think this year especially, I'm really looking forward to Sunday and our party. I'm looking forward to being at the wharf, potentially snow and all. And I'm looking forward to seeing, again, faces of all ages, all backgrounds, all gathered out in one form or the other, celebrating what really is a beautiful holiday, even if you will never find it anywhere in the Torah. So with that, I wish you all a Shabbat Shalom, and in advance, a Chag Urim Sameach. May it be a festival of joy and great light. We'll turn back to our prayer books now. I'll invite us to rise as we turn to page 586 at the bottom of the page, Aleinu L'Shabeach. Aleinu L'Shabeach L'Adon HaKol, Atet Gedula Le'otzer Breshit, Shelo Asanu Kegoye Haratzot, Velo Samhanu Kemishbechot Adama, Shelo Sam Chelkenu Kahem, Vego Horaleinu Kechol Hamonam, Vanachnu Korim, Umishtachavim Umodim, Lifnei Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We turn now to page 591. V'nehemar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz v'yom hahu yeh Adonai echad u'shemo echad. Ask those in mourning and those observing yahrzeit to please remain standing. Everyone else may be seated at this time. We think first of those who passed in our community in recent months. Stephen Dickman, Michael Fagenbaum, Danny Horowitz, David Carlin, Morris Kramer, Leonard Lauder, Jeanette Myrowitz, Carol Nadell, Perry Ranan, Gloria Sapiro, Edward Schiff, Louise Silberman, and Sue Wartor. We also mark the art sites that occurred during the last week for Dr. Joseph Berkeley, Gertrude Blank, Emil Brill, Lillian Farber, Louis Feinstein, Erwin Gadinsky, Melvin Gelb, Frida Siblowitz-Hertz, Charles Hipsch, Helen Kropp, Anton Jacob Kurz, Max Lewontin, Leo Leibowitz, Rosalind Malenkoff, Harlan Noddle, Elizabeth Pence, Lisa Schneidman, Harry Schockett, Louis Schwab, Josephine Schwartz, Nina Elizabeth Schumann, Doris Serow, Melvin Serow, Ralph Spinner, Arthur Spitz, Daniel Tatcon, Abra Weinstein, Sophie Zauber, and Rose Zuckerman. In addition to those names that I just shared, is anyone saying Kaddish for anyone I did not mention? I'll invite the mourners to join with me on page 598. If it's your custom to rise alongside them, you may do so at this time. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayichon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'bizman kariv v'yimru amen. Yehei shemei Rabbah mevarach la'alam u'li'almei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitbar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shemei dekudsha barichu. Leila min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shalama rabba min shemaya v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Zichronam livracha, may every one of their memories be for a blessing. Shabbat shalom, everybody. So a few important announcements, of course, to join us right next door as soon as our service is concluded for our expanded Oneg Shabbat. And speaking of Oneg Shabbats, I have to begin with a little bit of a zetz. I'm told by a very reliable source we only have how many signed up so far? 3 people signed up for our potluck next week, which is like historically very low. So I don't know whether all of you have become so reliant on Andrea's wonderful cooking and everything that one person cannot do it, all people. But most of what we need to know, and certainly if for any reason, all right, there's not a critical mass, but we don't want to cancel it. We want to enjoy ourselves. We want to eat. We want to have a good time. So please, if you think even decent chance you're coming next week and you're here tonight, let Andrea know. If you can, email her, let her know. And I hope very much that we'll be able to do that because, eating together is a lot of fun. So we thank you, Andrea, for always what you do. And while I'm skipping ahead a little bit, while I'm on the subject of next Friday, we have a lot of great things going on. We have our pre-service Hanukkah party and concert. And Gail, I know, is working very hard. We've got a rehearsal this week. We're going to, right, I think? Okay, we're going to get some beautiful music going here before services. We're going to have a little bit of wine and cheese. We're going to have services at 6 o'clock. And then we'll hopefully have that wonderful potluck to follow. So again, that's all next Friday. Before we get to any of that fun, though, of course, we have our party on Sunday here at the temple beginning at 3:30. This, again, is intergenerational, multi-generational. It's made for everybody. There's activities for all ages. There's magician, there is food, there is singing, there's candle lighting, there's all the great things. The only thing in addition to all that, I'm told, is a bit of snow. So we're going to be here. No matter what, we're going to be here. I don't think it's blizzard, people. So, but at the same time, as always, we all have to make decisions for ourselves. Do what is safe, but I promise we're going to have everything plowed. If you're a little concerned but still want to come, and you're worried about getting from your car indoor, please let us know. We'll make sure somebody will come to help get you from the car. We just want to make sure anybody who wants to be here can be here as best as we can. And the one piece that we're going to have to wait on is going to see. We had an idea to sort of walk from the temple, for those that wanted to, down to the wharf for the candle lighting at 6 o'clock. That we'll have to play by. Something tells me the kids will still get a kick out of it, but safety first always. But again, 6 o'clock on Sunday evening, we'll be at the wharf. We'll light our beautiful Chanukiah. We thank the Agosi family again from all the way back to day one to today, making sure that we have the opportunity to do that wonderful work of lighting the Chanukiah in town. And again, we hope you'll be able to join us for at least some, if not all, of that wonderful celebration. Also, I want to remind everybody, Wednesday, December 17th at 5 o'clock, our new 20s and 30s group, Dor Chadash, will be having its latke cook-off here. And again, will be judged by a very famous Chef Jason from Almond Restaurant down in Bridgehampton. That's knowing his latkes. If you win that means you're doing pretty well. He's got some preeminent latkes as far as I'm concerned. So we hope very much that you'll join us for that. If you're in your 20s and 30s, you want to know more about Dor Chadash, please let Shelley know, and we'll connect you with Adam and Hank on this great new group that's beginning. So those are all my announcements. President Ron, anything to add?
Drop a toy off.
Yes, drop a toy off. Where did I think I still have my flyers here. Okay, we still have time. Wonderful opportunities throughout the holiday season. Do good things. And again, if you didn't see it when you walked in, we have our receptacles right there for the Hanukkah party itself. You can bring the toys, drop them off here at the party, and we're accepting them, but they are due no later than 12/14, no later than the Hanukkah party itself. So please, if you can, if you haven't already, find a way. And of course, we continue also to gather food for those that are in need this time of year. And Maureen's Haven, our next Maureen's Haven is, Shelley?
Last Sunday of the month.
Last Sunday of December as well. So we'll be sending out, I don't think we've sent out this week's. Okay, great. So please help out any way that you can. All right. So with that, wish everybody a Shabbat Shalom, and let's end our service with Shalom Aleichem on page 627, and then we'll do Kiddush and Motzi go next. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malachei Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Moachem l'shalom, malachei hashalom, malachei elyon. Mi melech malachei hamlachim, hakadosh baruch hu. Baruch hu ni l'shalom, malachei hashalom, malachei elyon. Mi melech malchei hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzedchem l'shalom, malachei hashalom, malachei elyon. Mi melech malchei hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Please rise for Kiddush, page 123. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho b'ahava uvratzon ilchilanu zikaron l'maaseh v'reishit ki hu yehom techila l'mikrae kodesh zecher l'tziat Mitzrayim Ki b'hanu b'charta, ve'otanu kidashta, mikol ha'abim, v'shabbat kodshecha, be'ahava uvratzon hinchaltanu, Baruch atah Adonai, mekadesh ha'shabbat. Chaim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Please come next door. Hey, Josie. Another Friday. Another Friday. Another Friday down. Okay, sounds good. Yeah. Okay. That's good.